When you hear the words government shutdown, what do you think of? Probably political arguments on TV, right? Cable news headlines. Well, today we're going to go way beyond all that. We're looking at the real human cost when the gears of government just grind to a halt.
It all kicks off with this massive number, 1.4 million. That's how many civilian federal employees all across the country are suddenly not getting a paycheck. And this isn't just a DC thing, we're talking about a crisis hitting families in every single state. So look, this isn't just a story about politics or policy. This is about people. This is the story of what happens to your neighbors, to highly skilled professionals, to regular families when the financial ground just completely vanishes from underneath them. All right, to really get what's going on, we gotta break down the language first. Let's look at some of the key terms and the real scale of this thing. Okay, so there's a really important difference here you need to know about. You've got furloughed workers, those are the folks sent home. Then you have essential workers. Think air traffic controllers, TSA agents. They have to keep working. But here's the kicker, the really critical part. Neither group is getting paid. Zero.
And this is where things get really real, really fast. The next thing we're going to look at is that first missed paycheck. That's the moment this abstract political fight in DC becomes a massive personal financial shockwave.
And you want to know how concrete this gets? Let's put a date on it, October 25th. For literally millions of families, this was the day the crisis hit home. This was the day they looked at their bank accounts, expecting a direct deposit, and there was just nothing.
The impact was immediate. It was devastating. Just look at this report from Prince George's County, Maryland, an area with more than 60,000 federal workers. You've got middle-class professionals lining up for emergency food. It just goes to show you how fast that financial stability can disappear for anybody.
But it didn't just stop at a missed paycheck. That would be bad enough. The fear quickly ramped up from, okay, this is a temporary hardship, to the permanent, terrifying thought of losing your job entirely.
And that brings us to a new, pretty chilling acronym for thousands of federal workers, RIF. R-I-F. It stands for Reduction in Force, which is basically just the government's official, cold term for a layoff notice.
And this wasn't just some abstract threat. We're talking over 4,000 of these RIF notices already sent out. That's 4,000 families just like that, facing the real possibility of permanent unemployment. And even that was just a start. White House estimates at the time were warning that the total number of layoffs could actually climb as high as 10,000. Can you imagine the uncertainty? So these notices were hitting major departments all over the government. And to make things even more messy, a legal battle started. A judge in San Francisco actually tried to stop some of the layoffs, but the administration basically said, nope, that court order doesn't apply to most of these. This just left thousands and thousands of people stuck in this horrible legal limbo. So on top of the layoff threat, there was another huge question hanging over everyone's head. Okay, even if I get to go back to work, am I ever going to get paid for the time I missed?
And this is where the uncertainty just got brutal. Because on one hand, you have a 2019 federal law that seems super clear. It says back pay is required. But then on the other hand, a White House memo came out suggesting that furloughed workers might not get that money. Just imagine the stress of not knowing if weeks of your income were just gone forever.
But, this crisis wasn't just about federal workers, not even close. The shutdown created these massive ripple effects that started touching millions of other Americans, people far, far away from Washington. Just take a second and let this number sink in. 42 million. That is how many low-income Americans, we're talking kids, senior citizens, working families, depend on SNAP benefits, food stamps, just to eat. And now all of their benefits were directly on the line.
And the message from the USDA, the department that runs the whole program, was just chillingly direct about the benefits that were supposed to come out on November 1st. They said, the well has run dry. For 42 million people, that's not just a quote. That is a catastrophe.
So why was all of this happening? Well, it came down to a political stalemate in Washington over the federal budget. While the human cost was getting worse every single day, both parties were just deadlocked, leaving all these people and all these programs just hanging in the balance.
And that really brings us back to the most important question here. We see the politicians arguing on TV, we hear the talking points, but the reality is this: when the government stops working, who really, truly bears the cost? The answer isn't in the halls of Congress. It's in the homes of 1.4 million federal workers and the 42 million Americans just trying to put food on the table for their families.